You are sitting across from a friend who is crying for the thousandth time over their tumultuous relationship. Before they have finished the first sentence, you already know the deal. Attachment wound, anxious avoidant dynamic. They are probably fawning, probably have been for years. You listen with compassion and reflect with peace, and you give them wise advice. Focus on yourself. Heal your attachment wound. Take some time apart so that you can clear your head and your energy. Your friend is so grateful for your support and looks at you like you have handed them a magical key. You drive home feeling clear, even a little proud. But later that night, you look at your own phone. You're scanning for a text from the person you somehow managed to fall into a situationship with. A person you should have stopped talking to months and months ago. But you can't seem to stop yourself from texting them again and again, even though your last text was left on read for weeks. You know exactly why you were sending this text. You know you shouldn't be sending this text, and yet you send it anyway. You have the language about why you shouldn't. You've read the books about what it is. You understand what it is. You've done the courses. You've sat in the circles. You can map your own patterns with the fluency of someone who has spent real time in your interior castle, as St. Teresa calls it. And somehow in the middle of all that knowing, the same doors keep opening into the same rooms for you. You are able to easily and freely give the advice you know in your mind to your friend. But in those late night moments, you feel shame as you cannot even hold the same standard for yourself. And that is where we begin today. This month we have been sitting with Prometheus, with the myth of the one who stole fire from the gods themselves and paid for it with his body, but not with his soul. And last week we met the Defiant Sovereign, the archetype at the heart of the Promethean story. And we began to look honestly at both its light face and its shadow. But this week we are going to go even deeper into the shadow, because there's a particular kind of suffering that the Prometheus myth does not really prepare you for. And you would think that that suffering is the punishment from getting your liver eaten from the outside source, but there's something far more insidious. It is the suffering of having chained yourself. But before we descend into that, we need to visit another story, one that runs parallel to Prometheus across a different mythic tradition, one that carries the same fire, the same fall, but it reveals kind of like another angle to it, something that Prometheus alone cannot show us. So the Book of Enoch is an ancient Jewish text that preceded and informed much of what many people consider scripture to this day. In it, there's a figure named Azazel. He is one of the Watchers, beings of a higher order appointed to observe humanity from a distance, to watch but not to interfere or intervene. Like Prometheus, Azazel looked down at humanity and saw something in humanity that drew him beyond the boundary that he had been given. And so he taught humanity the arts of metalworking and weaponry, the arts of adornment and cosmetics, through which appearance could be shaped and altered. He taught the hidden knowledge of transformation, how to take what the earth offered and reshape it into something new. Sounds familiar, right? And like Prometheus, he was punished for it. He was bound and cast into the darkness beneath the desert, sealed away from the world he had tried to serve, held there until the final reckoning. The parallel is striking. Both figures saw something in humanity worth more than their own safety. Both descended with that knowledge that they would be punished, and both were bound for it. But then the myths diverge, and this is where Azazel becomes the necessary companion to this descent. The knowledge Prometheus gave was fire, singular, clarifying, the source of craft and thought and independence. The knowledge Azazel gave was a double-edged sword. The same metalworking that could build a plow could also forge a sword. Double-edged sword, actually. The same understanding of adornment that allowed a person to bring out their beauty to boost their confidence. Well, it could become the mask that made them unrecognizable to even themselves. Azazel's gift carried within it the seed of its own corruption. You see, knowledge given without the wisdom to wield it does not liberate, it complicates. Knowledge that is not embodied, as we talk about in the Tree of Life, does not transform you, but it reorganizes your defenses, making them deeper and more complex. The example of being able to help others with problems that you haven't even been able to conquer yourself is a perfect example of unembodied knowledge. You know it inside and out, and yet you do not have the actual capacity to live it yet. That's not evil or foolish or even hypocritical. You just haven't built the inner containers to hold that truth within you as of yet. If you're interested in how that whole inner landscape works and how to work with it and learn it, check out my Embodying the Kabbalistic Tree series. It's all about the blueprint of the mind and the psyche. So circling back around, the Greeks had a word for the force that governs what cannot be changed, Ananke. She is the goddess of necessity, of inevitability, of the inescapable conditions of a human life, fate in very loose terms. Forces like illness, loss, and time. She does not ask for consent, and there's no negotiating with time, right? Defiance means nothing to her. And so the shadow becomes an active player in the story because many of us, having discovered our inner fire, having touched the defiant sovereign within ourselves, have turned that defiance not only outward to what is truly oppressing us, but inward towards Ananke herself. We become our own repressors. We make enemies of our own limitations. We have declared war against our own bodies. We have suppressed our grief. We have wallowed in our confusion and lashed out against the seasons of stillness that life sometimes requires of us. We push away the grief that needs to be felt. We have tried to Prometheus our way through things that were never meant to be defied. I remember I did this years ago when I tried to walk part of the Camino de Santiago de Compostela, which is a pilgrimage path in northern Spain that has been walked for over 1,000 years. It took less than a few days to realize that my body was not cooperating like it used to. And I used my extremely stubborn willpower to keep pushing myself. But I found myself literally crawling miles through the mountains on the Camino, no shoes, no socks, because of how painful my feet had become. By the end, my mind and body had been completely broken down. The Camino had served its purpose of deeper self-understanding. It helped me understand that for my whole life, I had been stubbornly willing my way through situations that were hurting me. When I returned, I ended a toxic relationship. I came to terms with my limitations and was truly humbled by my own perception. Pilgrimages do what pilgrimages do, right? Pilgrimages are meant to help you along your spiritual path, but it's not always what you think it will be. This is the shadow of sovereignty, the belief that nothing should be able to claim authority over you, including reality itself. The Greeks also gave us the concept of logos, the capacity to remain internally coherent within Ananke or fate. This is the ability to choose one's internal posture, even when external circumstances cannot be chosen by you. Logos asks you to meet Ananke with presence. This means to remain recognizable to yourself no matter what, even the weakest parts, especially the weakest parts. And then there's the daimon, not a demon, as we have come to understand it, that word in a lot of the cultures. The daimon in Greek thought is an inner guiding orientation. Heraclitus said that a person's character itself is their daimon. That destiny is shaped less by what happens to us than the patterns of response we return to again and again under pressure. This is definitely analogous to shadow work, because in Jungian shadow work, we reflect on how repetitive patterns become so ingrained that they take on a life of their own, moving through life almost as if you didn't have a say in your own actions. Jung called these complexes, or splinter personalities that do not consider your conscious will as they move you through life. So, unexamined suffering does not necessarily destroy us, but as we say in the Tree of Life, it can distort us. And what is not seen, what is roiling around in our subconscious minds, it rules us more than what we are thinking about consciously. There's a particular pattern that many seekers fall into. and it lives precisely at the intersection of the Defiant Sovereign and the wound beneath it. Here's what it sounds like. I will not let this break me. And that sentence, which is awesome and begins as sovereignty, can become a prison of its own. Because in refusing to break open your heart, as Rumi says, we also sometimes refuse to be moved by life at all. We won't grieve or soften, all those things I said earlier. We'll refuse to let anything in that might rearrange us, even the things that would make us more whole. Prometheus on his cliff chose his suffering. He said yes to it fully with open eyes because it was the cost of something he believed in. Azazel descended with open eyes as well, but the knowledge he carried was more than humanity, or perhaps even he, was prepared to integrate. Both were bound, but the binding of Prometheus was the consequence of clarity. The binding of Azazel was the consequence of a gift given ahead of its time. It was knowledge without the container to hold it, as we say in Kabbalah. And that distinction asks us something personal. When you descended into your own depth, when you claimed your own fire, did you also build the capacity to carry it wholly, to carry it fully? Or are you still holding onto something that has not yet found its vessel? What happens when we carry suffering that we did not choose, and we begin to wear our survival of it as an identity? When I am someone who does not break becomes indistinguishable from I am someone who cannot feel. We are being asked to look honestly at what we are still guarding and whether the guarding has outlived the threat. And where are you still chained by your own refusal to put the chains down? Thank you for making it this far, Mystic Travelers. Please tell me below how this Defiant Sovereign archetype or its shadow has shown up in your life. And I'll see you next week.